Next, we have a surprise speech from the bride. And you won't believe it, but she's addressing her mother. Please, go ahead. The announcement was met with applause from the guests as they turned their attention toward me. I stood up, moved. Despite our clashes during her rebellious years, I always tried to shower her with love, in my own way, truly considering her my daughter. It seemed Sierra understood that. Becoming a mother, I've never felt a moment as blissful as this. My eyes were already welling up with tears. But the words that came out of Sierra's mouth were the complete opposite of what I imagined, shocking not just me but everyone in the room. I've never thought of you as my mom, and I want you to stay out of my life from now on. Feeling the gaze of the murmuring crowd, I took a deep breath. What was once a heart full of joy was now filled with sorrow and anger. So, you're okay with that? You won't regret it? I won't, Sierra said, smiling in a way that didn't suit her pure white dress at all. If that's how she feels, then so be it. I responded. Understood. And left the venue alone. My name is Florence. I'm a 55-year-old woman, working busy every day. Not to boast, but I'm competent enough to have been chosen as the first female department head in a major corporation. My husband, Matthew, is 5 years my junior. We got married when I was 40, after he became my direct subordinate at work. Matthew had been through a divorce and was a single father. Despite not being the most skilled at work, Matthew had high domestic skills and was very homey. At first, I was often irritated by Matthew's mistakes, but after realizing his attentiveness, my view of him changed. After his divorce, he was depressingly down for a while, but I felt a desire to support the stoically enduring Matthew. At that time, Matthew had an 8-year-old daughter, and I thought it cruel to make her part of a new family, considering my inability to do household chores and my commitment to work. However, when Matthew asked me out during a business trip, I was taken aback. I can't do household chores, take time off work to spend with a child, or adjust my work hours for a child's sake. It would be better for your daughter to find someone who can truly be a mother to her. I initially rejected him, but Matthew said, I'm not good at my job, so I'm thinking of transferring to a department with no overtime. I'm good at housework, and my daughter is 8, so she can basically do everything herself. You don't have to try to be a mother, just talking to her when you're home and listening to her female troubles would make me happy. Hearing this, then, let's give it a try. We started dating. Honestly, I still struggled with the ideal of motherhood versus my reality, but deep down, I always wanted a child, and I treated Sierra as my own daughter. From the start, Sierra was very friendly with me, and on weekends, we would go shopping for clothes or watch movies together, like friends. After 2 years of careful relationship building and obtaining Sierra's approval, we got married when she was 10. Sierra and I underwent an adoption process, making us legally mother and daughter. Our relationship started to change about 6 years after we began living together, around the time Sierra was in high school. She started wearing shorter skirts and heavier makeup, becoming a bit more flamboyant. Especially when it came to her curfew, she wouldn't come on time. I allowed her to work part-time until 10 p.m., but she would always return home from her job, a 10-minute walk away, after midnight. Sierra, you've been coming home late recently. It's dangerous at night, so I'd like you to come straight home. Shut up! You're not my real mom, so stop butting in. Sierra. Behind the slammed door, I could hear Sierra complaining about me on the phone. After several such incidents, our relationship deteriorated. Sierra, maybe it's just a phase. We were getting along so well. Don't worry about it. It's just a phase where she can't be honest. She talks about how grateful she is to you. It's just for now.
I hope so.
I think she's just being spoiled. But it's hard on you, Florence. Sorry.
It's okay. After all, I chose to be her mother. To that, Matthew smiled gently and said,
Thank you.
Matthew has taken on all the household chores for me, busy with work. Of course, I help out on weekends, and I can't just give up here for Matthew, who supports me with a smile and without complaints. With that thought, I continued to engage with Sierra. Being called an old woman and someone without blood ties was painful, but I could bear it because of Matthew's support and the memories of the good times with Sierra. Throughout high school, Sierra continued to rebel against me. Then, as a college student, she began ignoring me. Being treated as if I didn't exist was even harder than the rebellion. And this ignoring happened only when Matthew wasn't around. On the contrary, when Matthew was present, she would interact with me just like the old times. Honestly, I was scared of Sierra's behavior. But since she didn't act this way in front of Matthew, he might not believe me if I told him. I shed tears in private but pretended to be a happy family with Sierra in front of Matthew. Then, after graduating college and starting a job, while Matthew was out shopping, Sierra brought me a gift. Why all of a sudden? I wondered, to which Sierra smiled sheepishly.
I haven't been a good daughter for the past 7 years, since high school. I was rude and ignored you. I really wanted to get along, but I just couldn't be honest. I'm sorry. Can we get along like before?
Sierra. It's okay. After all, I am your mom.
Florence. Thank you.
Saying this, Sierra went back to her room. The gift was a wallet from my favorite brand, and I was so happy that I cried. After that, although awkward, we managed to get along relatively well, going out together and relaxing at home watching TV. Matthew seemed relieved seeing us like this. He must have been tense and unsettled for the past 7 years, trying to mediate and support me in various ways. I had no doubt that these efforts would positively affect our family relationships moving forward. However, I sometimes felt like money was missing from my wallet. Since Matthew wouldn't do such a thing, I suspected Sierra but didn't want to confront her and risk returning to our previous relationship. I wasn't keeping a ledger, so it might have been a misunderstanding. With that thought, I pretended not to notice and carried on. 3 years after Sierra started working, she suddenly brought home a boyfriend. A friend from college. Albert, her boyfriend, who just got a job this year, planned to get married next year, having already booked the venue. We were surprised but blessed them. Albert seemed a bit timid, but maybe someone like him was good for the strong-willed Sierra. Thinking so, I discussed plans for our second life with Matthew over drinks. Then, Sierra enjoyed her last moments of single life, traveling with friends and dating Albert. I still felt the wallet thinning but hesitated to speak up, not wanting to dampen the happy Sierra's spirits. Reflecting back, I felt I hadn't fully embraced motherhood, yet at the time, I was fixated on the ideal of a mother desiring her daughter's happiness. As the wedding approached, Sierra announced her pregnancy. I was overjoyed at the thought of seeing my grandchild, having given up on marriage and children myself. Fortunately, her pregnancy was smooth, with only mild morning sickness, so the wedding went as planned, with only the honeymoon cancelled for safety. We understood the concerns about traveling during pregnancy. However, one thing bothered me. Albert's expression darkened when the topic of children came up. Becoming silent.
Albert, you seem down. What's wrong?
Do I? Maybe it's just the nerves of becoming a father. His response was dismissive, but I was convinced that must be the case. Little did I know that I would be shocked to learn the real reason from Albert later. On the wedding day, the ceremony was a big success with many attendees. Knowing how much everyone loved Sierra made me incredibly happy.
Next, we have a surprise speech from the bride. And you won't believe it, but she's addressing her mother. Please, go ahead.
The announcement was met with applause from the guests as they turned their attention toward me. I stood up, moved. Despite our clashes during her rebellious years, I always tried to shower her with love, in my own way, truly considering her my daughter. Sierra must have understood that. Becoming a mother, there's no moment as blissful as this. My eyes were already welling up with tears. However, the words that came out of Sierra's mouth were the complete opposite of what I imagined, shocking not just me but everyone in the room. I've never thought of you as my mom, and I want you to stay out of my life from now on. Feeling the gaze of the murmuring crowd, I took a deep breath. What was once a heart full of joy was now filled with sorrow and anger. So, you're okay with that? You won't regret it? I won't, Sierra said, smiling in a way that didn't suit her pure white dress at all. If that's how she feels, then so be it. I responded. Understood. And left the venue alone. Minutes later, Matthew caught up to me. Apparently, Sierra and Albert were in the middle of an argument, causing a halt to the ceremony. It was expected, but Sierra's nerve to continue the ceremony in such a situation was beyond me. Because we've been getting along lately, I never imagined Sierra would say something like that. I'm truly sorry. No, Matthew. It's not your fault. I think it's because I wasn't able to understand Sierra's feelings. But I hesitated, and it seemed Matthew understood. He looked a bit sad, but still smiled at me and said, It's only natural. You don't have to deal with Sierra anymore. She's an adult now. Even if her marriage falls through, she can live on her own, and it's probably best to move and cut ties. If she hates living with us that much, divorce might be inevitable. Divorce? I married you because it's you. But I do have something I want to say to Sierra, to cut ties properly. Say whatever you need to. I'm on your side. I hadn't expected Matthew to take my side. Though Sierra is his daughter, and it might seem right to support her, the gentle Matthew I knew was deeply upset by Sierra's actions, so I decided it was Sierra who was in the wrong. And then Matthew took my hand, and we went back to the reception. The venue was buzzing, and at the back, the bride and groom, Albert and Sierra, were arguing. What's wrong with saying not a mom to a woman who isn't my mom? It doesn't matter if she's not your real mother, she's lived with you and raised you since you were 10. I don't understand how you can humiliate someone like that in front of so many people. It was faster to say it here. This isn't something to ruin the ceremony over. They stopped arguing when they saw me. Then Albert quickly came over to apologize. I'm very sorry for what happened. I knew there was going to be a surprise, but I was told the details were a secret until today. I assumed it would be to express gratitude. Hey! Why are you apologizing to her? Sierra yelled, her face looking demonic, not an expression suited for someone in a wedding dress. Matthew sighed next to me and then spoke up. Sierra, how could you say such disrespectful things to Florence? She has raised you with me since you were 10. We've been getting along recently, haven't we? Dad, what are you talking about? That was all preparation for today, to completely crush her. It hurts more if you're nice first and then drop them. Unaware of the surrounding disdain, Sierra laughed loudly. However, seeing Matthew's expression, she suddenly panicked. Matthew, not typically prone to anger and always smiling. Rarely scolded, even for tardiness or breaking things. But Matthew, when he does get angry and turns cold and logical, is probably several times scarier than me, always angry.
Sierra, you struggled in school, didn't you? Your grades were bad, and keeping up in class was tough. What are you talking about all of a sudden? You went to tutoring and lessons as you pleased, and you received plenty of allowance every time, right?
Yeah, so?
What about it? And college? Somehow you made it to a private university, went abroad under the guise of studying, but just played around and didn't improve your Spanish at all.
As more was revealed, Sierra's complexion worsened. She was not academically inclined, but her pride was high, making the current situation particularly inconvenient for her. Then Matthew, with a smile, dropped a bombshell.
Who do you think paid for all of that? Florence did. What? That's a lie. You're the man of the house and you make more money.
Sierra refused to believe it, prompting Matthew to start talking about my position and his current department.
Becoming a single father, I struggled because I couldn't spend time with you. At that time, it was Florence who suggested I move to a different department. Even though we were dating and couldn't find time for dates, Florence told me to prioritize time with you. No one ever told me about that. Florence doesn't talk much about it. I think she was protecting my pride. She was already a department head back then and was 3 to 4 times busier than me. Yet, she took over my overtime until I could transfer departments, and she was the one who proposed at that time. I'll take care of the living expenses and household. So Matthew, you just do the housework and spend time with the child. There's no woman like her.
For the first time, Sierra was speechless upon hearing the truth. Matthew turned to me with a smile and took my hand. I squeezed back and looked at him. Turning back to Sierra, Matthew declared,
No matter how important my daughter is, I cannot call someone who insults my wife and the mother who's been with us for 15 years in such a manner my child anymore. From today, we're cutting ties. Why would you choose that woman over your own daughter?
Sierra was completely flustered as she confronted Matthew, whose expression remained unchanged. Still, Sierra clung to him.
Dad, I'll reflect on what happened today. Please forgive me.
Matthew did not respond. From an outsider's perspective, it might seem pitiful, but Sierra deserved to face the consequences of her actions. However, instead of showing remorse, Sierra glared at me. Resignedly, I decided to reveal something I had intended to keep to myself for the moment. By the way, I've noticed money occasionally missing from my wallet. Do you know anything about that?
Are you accusing me? You only have $300 in there anyway. How do you know there's only $300 in my wallet? Oh crap!
Sierra's face turned pale as if she had just slipped up. In fact, since I became suspicious, I had kept a consistent amount of $300 in my wallet for years. Only I knew this, not even Matthew, let alone Sierra.
The only ones who would know what's in my wallet are either me or someone who has been stealing cash from it. I didn't know, maybe you mentioned it somewhere. I haven't told Matthew, so why would I tell you? What?
Sierra was at a loss for words. Then Susan, a friend of the bride sitting on the bride's side, stood up.
You're still doing that. I kept quiet because you said you'd stop. Shut up, you!
Sierra panicked and tried to intervene, but Matthew stopped her and prompted Susan to continue.
When we were students, I had money taken from my wallet. It was only discovered because I happened to witness it, but there must have been other victims too. Since we were best friends and she was going through a tough time, I forgave her, thinking it was just a mistake. But I never imagined she'd do it to her stepmother too.
This caused a stir among the groom's side. The groom's family included many police officers, making it impossible for them to accept a family member, let alone the bride, being involved in theft.
Sierra, I can't marry a woman who steals. It's a misunderstanding. This is all a misunderstanding.
Sierra clung to Albert in desperation. Albert shook her off with annoyance.
That's not all. Not just this incident, but I've been meaning to keep quiet about it. However, that child in your belly, it's not mine, is it? What?
The surprise wasn't mine alone. Even Sierra herself froze, eyes wide.
As a child, I had an accident and was told I might not be able to have children. And we haven't been intimate recently, yet you're pregnant and cheating on me. I haven't cheated. Yes, you have. With him.
Albert pointed at Taylor, a male friend of Sierra's sitting among the guests, turning all eyes on him as his face went pale.
There's no proof. You have no proof. Here, look.
Albert showed his smartphone with a photo of Sierra holding hands with Taylor as they entered a lodging facility. Sierra stumbled back in shock, her mouth moving wordlessly.
We'll know whose child it is with a DNA test. If it's mine, I'll pay child support. What about our marriage? Why would I? You steal, cheat, and bring harm instead of gratitude. Who would want to marry someone like that?
Albert shouted at Sierra, then apologized to us again. We, too, were drawn into apologizing. How could you? This is terrible.
You're the terrible one. You betrayed trust. Reflect on that alone from now on.
Matthew firmly pushed her away and approached Taylor, delivering a forceful punch. Taylor, his face drained of color, apologized profusely.
Depending on the DNA test, you'd better take responsibility.
Yes, I will. Matthew then apologized to the guests. I joined in the apology. The guests comforted us warmly, their kindness overwhelming in light of our failure to reciprocate. Afterward, Sierra's engagement was broken off. Since the marriage application was to be filed after the ceremony, no legal marriage occurred, but she was demanded to pay a compensation similar to infidelity during marriage. Naturally, Sierra turned to Matthew, who completely ignored her and turned her away. The cause of her dipping into people's money was her spending habits. It turned out Sierra was in debt, trying to repay what she owed. She had been taking small amounts of money from colleagues, superiors, and friends' wallets, which led to her dismissal when discovered. Though not sued, she had to pay back the amounts taken and compensation. Working tirelessly to pay off her debts, Sierra frequently sought Matthew's help, still believing he would assist her, but he had completely written her off, ensuring no future aid. This behavior of taking money started during her student days, seemingly habitual. As a last act of kindness, or rather to prevent further trouble, Matthew booked counseling for her, taking her once a month. It seems Sierra has disliked me since the remarriage, constantly calling me a bitch for stealing her beloved father. Despite appearing close, a friend of Sierra's mentioned that her true nature emerged after her teenage facade faded. Albert, initially devastated and nearly succumbing to depression, was cared for by a childhood friend who lived nearby, recovering thanks to their devoted care. This friend, who had harbored feelings for Albert from a young age, later began a relationship with him. This friend comes from a distinguished family with a history of producing police officials. Though regrettable how things turned out, I hope for their happiness. As for me, I decided to take early retirement to enjoy our later years with Matthew. Announcing sudden retirement after a career of dedication caused quite a stir, but explaining the reason led to understanding, planning to retire at the fiscal year's end. With Matthew already wanting early retirement, our frugal lifestyle ensured we had enough savings for a modest life. We planned to buy a small house in the countryside, start a vegetable garden, and live simply. Though I missed the presence of someone I thought of as a daughter, I look forward to our future life. In this era of living a century, it's a win to pursue what you desire. Swearing under the open sky to live a joyful life with Matthew, I took a step forward. My name's Nora, and my husband Frederick and I are both in our late 40s. We're a working couple with 2 sons. Our eldest, Leo, and our youngest, Percy. We were a happy family of 4 until one day, a former classmate of Frederick's showed up. By then, my mother-in-law who we were living with had passed away, and we had renovated her home to live in. For dinner that day, at Leo's request, we had stew. Our sons love a hearty stew. We were all enjoying seconds when the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting anyone, and it was dinner time, so I wondered who it could be and went to the door, only to find a stranger standing there.
Good evening. My name's Dahlia. I used to be Frederick's classmate.
Even though we had renovated the place, it was originally the in-laws' home. It wouldn't be strange for a former classmate to stop by. But I wondered if it was something that couldn't wait until after a phone call at this hour. Feeling a bit off, I called for Frederick. He immediately came to the door, and they started to catch up as if they hadn't seen each other in ages.
Hey! If it isn't Dahlia. Long time no see. Are you back in town?
I moved back to my parents' house yesterday. So, I thought I'd come by and say hello to you, who lives nearby, as a way of getting reacquainted.
Moved back? Weren't you married and living in another state, Dahlia? Why move? Did something happen to your aunt and uncle?
Frederick, having lost his parents, seemed to jump to that conclusion. Then Dahlia, with a bright smile, said, "Well, I am worried about my parents. But actually, I'm considering getting a divorce. I thought about separating and moved back here."
Oh, I see. Sorry for the insensitive question.
The word divorce seemed to unsettle Frederick. Being the first time meeting her, I didn't know what to say either. Perhaps disliking the awkward atmosphere, Frederick tried to change the subject. "Hey, Dahlia, come on in. I'll introduce you to my sons."
What?
This time, I was the one startled. I'll say it again, she's a stranger, and besides, we were in the middle of dinner. I tried to signal Frederick with my eyes to stop this, but he didn't notice and invited Dahlia in. And Dahlia, without seeming to feel bad about it.
Really? Well then, I might just take you up on that offer and come in for a bit.
She started to come inside. She said lightly and walked in, ignoring me completely and heading to the living room with Frederick. I hurried after Frederick and Dahlia, feeling my irritation growing. Wait. Did she just ignore me? She didn't even ask for my permission to come in. This is also my house, and isn't it common courtesy to consult the wife in these situations? That's how my impression of Dahlia was far from favorable. Upon reaching the living room, Dahlia forced herself between our 2 sons at the dinner table, saying,
"Good evening. You can call me Dahlia. You're Frederick's sons, right? Cute. You look like your dad. And Frederick, your skin looks clearer than before. You've become quite handsome, haven't you?"
She continued in a cloying tone. My sons and I were too dumbfounded to respond. Then Dahlia glanced at the dinner table, scoffed, and said, "Stew? It's great for when you want to cut corners, isn't it? What's with these dishes? No taste. These glasses look cheap too. And this room, doesn't it look shabby? It's a waste considering the house is relatively new. Such disrespectful comments. Afterward, Dahlia kept making disparaging remarks about our home in a fawning voice before she left, leaving behind an unpleasant atmosphere. My sons and I were appalled by Dahlia's rude behavior. We all remained silent. Leo said in disgust,
"Who was that? She was incredibly rude."
Percy made a disgusted face.
"And she smelled strongly of perfume. Can I open the window for some air? I've lost my appetite."
Without waiting for an answer, he stood up and opened the living room window.
"Really? Coming into someone's house without hesitation at dinner time and then criticizing the place is just rude, isn't it? She said she was Dad's former classmate, but is that true? Were you guys not on good terms or something?"
Faced with our disapproval, Frederick scratched his head uncomfortably. "Sorry about that. That was Dahlia, a former classmate of mine. She's always been high-spirited, you know, talks like that." No, that's clearly malicious. Everyone but Frederick could sense it. She definitely has something against me. I didn't know why at the time, but I could feel the hostility directed at me from the start. Since then, Dahlia began to visit frequently, always timing her visits when Frederick was coming home. Looking back, Dahlia's house is between the station and ours. Maybe she was really watching us. It felt like too much of a coincidence.
"Just saw Frederick coming home."
Or she would say,
"I had some time today, so I thought I'd stop by."
Something along those lines. Yes, we don't need her to drop by. And what they do amounts to nothing more than Frederick and her criticizing our home together. Today, they ignored me preparing dinner and sat down together on the living room sofa, chatting. Although I couldn't see them, their conversation was inevitably audible. They must both be aware of that. And in that setting, Dahlia's critique of our home began.
"Doesn't your house just look too unappealing? No decorations, not much color, it doesn't look good at all. It's bad."
Yeah, I do want to make the room a bit more stylish. But Nora lacks taste. Frederick's hearty laughter, followed by Dahlia's sycophantic giggles. Yeah, I get that.
Nora seems to have no interest in such things.
That's right. Even if I buy something, she usually doesn't decorate with it and just puts it away.
Ah, that's sad. I would definitely decorate.
Look, check out my Instagram. Instagram?
Yeah, actually, I post about interiors on Instagram. Here, Nora, you should look at my Instagram and learn.
Dahlia caught me as I came into the living room to set the table, showing me her phone screen. But the Instagram she showed was far from my taste. A clutter of items everywhere, a room that was the opposite of my preference for simplicity. Some might like it, but I couldn't imagine spending time in that room. Besides my taste, there were other reasons why I couldn't make our home into something Dahlia would like. Ignoring my frown, Dahlia sat back down next to Frederick. "It's quite popular, you know." "Hey, Frederick, I can make this house beautiful for you." "What? You've got to be kidding. This isn't just Frederick's house. It's also mine and our children's." Yet, Frederick seemed excited by that ridiculous suggestion.
"That sounds great. Dahlia has always had good taste. Maybe then, this bland house could become a bit more stylish and comfortable." "Yeah, this house feels a bit uncomfortable, kinda lonely. I'm good at housekeeping, and I have time now. So, Frederick, give me the keys to this house. Then, while you're at work,
I can turn this place into the ideal space.
Excuse me. What are you saying?
I couldn't overlook this any longer. I hurriedly interrupted their conversation.
Absolutely not with the keys. You know this is our house, not yours. If you want to do something, do it in your own home. Don't involve us. Nora's scary.
Dahlia exaggeratedly shrugged her shoulders and tried to hide behind Frederick, who was sitting next to her. It was irritating enough, but even more so was Frederick standing up to defend Dahlia.
Hey, Dahlia's just trying to be kind, you know? There's no need to be so confrontational. Kind or not, it's none of her business. Think about it. This isn't her house, is it? But it's true that this house isn't comfortable, right?
You've tucked away every decoration I've bought.
That's because...
Indeed, most of the interior decorations Frederick bought ended up in storage. However, there was a reason for that. I thought Frederick understood that reason. But apparently, that was just my assumption. Doubts about Frederick's commitment to his family began to surface. Dahlia didn't miss that moment of hesitation.
See? Frederick prefers it my way. Well, I do understand his tastes better.
That's right. Nora's taste is just too plain for me. I like things more glamorous. With that, Frederick took out a spare key from the cupboard and handed it to Dahlia.
Wait, no. Then, Dahlia, please take care of our house.
Frederick ignored what I said and smiled at Dahlia. Without any hesitation, Dahlia took the key.
Leave it to me. I could even take care of all the household chores. I know you prefer a housewife who takes care of the housework waiting at home, right? I'll make up for what Nora lacks.
She said and left before I could object.
What do you think you're doing? You think this is okay?
I glared at Frederick in anger, but he didn't seem the least bit perturbed. Instead, he looked at me with exasperation.
Stop nagging. Basically, this house isn't to my taste. I don't care about living with less or whatever, it's too simple and unsatisfying. I've been restless since the remodel.
Indeed, before the renovation, the in-laws' home had relatively more stuff. When we remodeled after my mother-in-law passed away, my opinion prevailed almost entirely.
Besides, Dahlia will do the housework, not just cleaning. That should make things easier for you. That's not the point. I don't want someone else meddling with our home. Come on. Dahlia has her own issues, like her divorce. If doing our housework helps her feel better, we should help her out. That's why she should do it in her own home.
I pleaded over and over and asked to get the key back, but Frederick wouldn't comply at all. And then, starting the next day, Dahlia began to intrude into our home as if she owned the place. When I got home, she was naturally inside, rearranging things around the house. It sounds nice when you say rearranging, but in reality, she was just cluttering up the place with random decorations. Moreover, the clothes were washed with so much fabric softener that it gave me a headache, and the groceries I had carefully planned were all used up in cooking. The dishes she made were all much too heavily seasoned for our taste. What's puzzling is that on days Dahlia was there, Frederick would almost always come home first. It's better than her being alone, but it still didn't feel right. When I got home that day, Dahlia was standing in the kitchen wearing my apron, with Frederick standing beside her. They looked almost like a couple.
Are you here again? Really, this is such a nuisance. Please give back the key and leave. But Frederick said it was okay.
Oh, I washed these for you.
Nora, you're using such a generic detergent. It doesn't even smell, not trendy at all. This is my recommendation.
I'll leave it here for you.
I don't want it. Please take it back.
Oh, and I made dinner too. Today it's hamburgers and, well,
Just go home.
I had reached my limit. With those words, I forcibly kicked Dahlia out. And then, I decided to put into action a plan I had been contemplating for a while. A few days later, I broached the subject with Frederick. Calmly, so as not to arouse suspicion.
Hey, do you really prefer her that much?
Then, Frederick, misunderstanding something, leered down at me and replied, "What's this? Jealous? Well, Dahlia is honest and cute. You could learn to be more honest too, Nora."
Got it. Actually, I have a business trip next week for about a week. I was thinking of asking Mom to help with the housework, but if she's coming over, no need, right?
A week? That's pretty long. But yeah, no problem if Dahlia's here. All right. I'll let Mom know then. At that moment, I had a plan in mind. I briefed the kids, acted as if nothing was wrong, and headed for my trip. When I returned home a week later, the place was a mess. What must have been Dahlia's taste in decorations, fabric ornaments were gathered in one spot, covered in a thin layer of dust. Could dust really accumulate that much in a week? The kitchen sink was piled high with unwashed dishes, and the trash can reeked of decay. Laundry that had been hung to dry indoors emitted a headache-inducing smell of fabric softener. Stunned by the chaos worse than I imagined, my sons came out from the back and said to me, "Mom, welcome back." Shocking, isn't it?
Yes. What happened? Dahlia was here, right? She was. Saying she's good at housework was totally a lie. She only does what she likes. And it was gross how she was always clinging to Dad. You were right, Mom.
I see. I was prepared for it, but hearing the facts was still hard. I told the boys to wait in their room and went to the living room, where Frederick and Dahlia were, as expected. They looked at me with resentful eyes. The house is in quite a state, isn't it?
It's all your son's fault.
Dahlia confronted me aggressively. Frederick, too, indignantly came at me.
The boys have been nothing but trouble for Dahlia. You must have told them something.
I didn't tell them anything. I just said Dahlia would be doing the housework while I was away. That was the truth. I just hadn't mentioned one thing to Dahlia. Now that they're grown up, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but my sons had severe eczema since they were little. They also have dust and mite allergies, so I've always been vigilant about keeping the house clean. I eliminated furniture and decorations that could gather dust. I opted for minimalistic decor with as few fabric items as possible. As a result, the house simply became easier to clean and less cluttered. Laundry detergents with strong scents didn't agree with my son's skin. Percy has a sensitive nose and reacts poorly to strong smells. After much searching for something that wouldn't irritate their skin or allergies, I found the inadequate detergent Dahlia mentioned. I had explained all of this to Frederick, but it seems it went in one ear and out the other. My sons know their own bodies. They know how to protect themselves. They clearly said no to Dahlia's interior decorations and removed the fabric ornaments that were a breeding ground for dust. Looking closer, the laundry was mostly Frederick and Dahlia's. They had been washing their own things. They avoided the living room after Dahlia washed the curtains. All of this is my speculation, but it's probably not far off. I explained everything, one by one, pressing Frederick.
Do you understand how careful I've been living for our sons? And have you looked in the mirror lately? You have a lot of acne. Do you know what caused it?
Yes, the boy's eczema was inherited from Frederick. Frederick's face was covered in acne. Dahlia probably cooked only the greasy food Frederick liked. I noticed Frederick's eczema when we started dating. Wanting to improve it, I focused on a healthy diet and lifestyle for him. Thanks to that, Frederick's physique improved, and his skin cleared up, but just 1 week of poor lifestyle choices caused his skin to flare up again. The grown-up boys managed their diet by buying vegetable salads or eating vegetables at the school cafeteria, but Frederick, it seems, did not think about such things and enjoyed Dahlia's cooking to his heart's content.
Posting about interiors on Instagram? You have the nerve after turning someone's home into this in a week. The moment I entered the house, I was hit by a mix of bad smells. Dust flying everywhere, dishes unwashed. I thought you were good at housekeeping. Stop it! How dare you! After I offered to help with the housework. Your sons are not cute at all. Even after I tried to make the room look nice, they say it smells dusty. They complain about the smell of the laundry I did, and they don't even eat the meals I cook. That's it. I'm leaving.
And with that, Dahlia left. Frederick hurriedly followed her. I let the boys know Frederick had left, and as planned, sent them off to our new place. Yes, I had decided to divorce. From Frederick and Dahlia's behavior, it was clear their relationship was more than just old classmates. What would happen if I told them I would be away for a week? They would surely let their guard down and become intimate in the house. I had set up video cameras all around the home. And my suspicions were confirmed.
Seriously. Keeping Dahlia happy is hard work. I'll go with you so you can apologize too, Nora.
Frederick came back, furious, suggesting I apologize. I interrupted him.
Let's get a divorce. You know why? Huh?
Frederick was taken aback, his eyes wide in disbelief. I continued without waiting for his response.
You don't listen to me or the kids, and you're cheating with Dahlia. What are you talking about? Dahlia is just a classmate who helped with housework. I won't be fooled. I have proof.
Then, there were the numerous prints from the video evidence. I showed him one of the better-looking photos. Frederick realized he couldn't talk his way out of this. Sorry. We just got carried away after meeting again. It wasn't serious.
I don't care whether it was serious or not. You cheated, so we're getting a divorce. That's all. Oh, and I've informed Dahlia's husband too. So, you'll be sued for damages by him. I will too, along with child support. Make sure you fulfill your responsibilities as a parent. Now, I'm off to the new place. New place? What do you mean? I can't stay in a house that Dahlia has dirted, and I was planning to divorce anyway, so I arranged for a new place. The kids and I will move there. We'll discuss the details through lawyers. Take care of yourself. But.
I left Frederick behind and hurried to the new place. Everything went as planned. I had already asked the company's legal advisor to recommend a divorce lawyer. The lawyer's office contacted him shortly afterward. Moreover, Dahlia hadn't finalized her own divorce and was receiving spousal support, which infuriated her husband immensely. Our divorce proceeded smoothly, and I received a lump sum for damages. Dahlia was also sued for damages and got a divorce. Disowned by her parents and kicked out of her home, she ended up moving in with Frederick. They are still living together, apparently. From what I've heard, the house is visibly neglected, and Frederick has gained a lot of weight. His skin is always covered in acne, far from a picture of health. I'm now living peacefully with my sons. Both of them understand the importance of maintaining their health and actively help with the housework. I will continue to do my best for my family. I'm Sarah. I married a colleague from work a year ago. My husband, Jeff, can be a bit clueless and not always the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's honest and incredibly kind. Since I'm the type who doesn't sweat the small stuff, our personalities mesh pretty well. Above all, Jeff's deep respect and care for his family were what sealed the deal for me. He especially treasures his mother Amanda, and never misses giving her a birthday gift.
I'm really grateful to Mom. I owe her a lot for raising me,
he'd say without a hint of embarrassment, which I found utterly charming. I've always adored my own parents and family, so we often talked about continuing to honor each other's families after we got married. Finding out after the wedding that he calls Amanda Mommy at home was a shock, but since he sticks to Mom in public, I decided it wasn't a big deal. I had met Amanda a few times before the wedding, and she always seemed to command the room like a queen, surrounded by her husband Eddie, Jeff, and Jeff's brother, Carl. I thought having her as a mother-in-law would be challenging, but I was confident in my own resilience and figured I'd manage somehow. Sometime after getting married, we decided to use our summer vacation for a honeymoon trip. Our destination? The long-awaited Anchorage. I was born and raised in Dallas, hardly ever seeing the sea. But I've loved seafood since I was a child, and watching TV specials about Anchorage, dreaming of the day I could feast on their jewel-like salmon and halibut. Back then, my family wasn't well off, so a trip to Anchorage by plane seemed like an unreachable dream. Knowing how much it meant to me, my husband instantly agreed on Anchorage as our honeymoon destination. I was so excited, I ended up buying 5 guidebooks. Just looking through the guidebooks made me happy. One day, a month before our honeymoon, I got a call from Amanda. "Sarah? How's the preparation for the Anchorage trip going?" she asked.
Great, I've been poring over the guidebooks because I'm so excited,
I replied. I want to visit the Portage Glacier, so make sure to include that in the plan, said Amanda.
Wait, Amanda, you're coming on the Anchorage trip too?
I asked if Amanda and Eddie were planning to go on a trip to Anchorage. What are you talking about? Of course, we're going together. Oh, and make sure we stay in a cottage. I can't sleep in hotels with other guests making noise, Amanda said.
Wait, what do you mean we're going together?
Before I could ask what she meant. All right then, looking forward to it. She hung up abruptly. Was Amanda seriously planning to tag along on our honeymoon? I was worried, but it could be a misunderstanding. I decided to wait for Jeff to come home and ask him for details.
When I talked to Amanda today, she said she's coming with us to Anchorage. What's that about?
I asked. Oh, Mommy's never been to Anchorage and mentioned she'd like to go. She's been saying her legs aren't what they used to be and doesn't know how much longer she can travel. With work being so busy, I thought this might be my last chance to do something nice for her, Jeff explained. Amanda's energetic enough for weekly tennis and belly dancing, so it seemed she had Jeff wrapped around her finger.
Sure, I want to do something nice for our parents too, but bringing them on our honeymoon is a bit much, I said. But I want to bring Mommy. We said we'd cherish each other's families, right?
Jeff insisted.
Well, yeah, but...
It seemed Jeff was seriously considering this as a gesture of filial piety. Classic Jeff. I didn't want to start our marriage with a conflict. Reluctantly, I decided to play along.
Okay then. So, it's all right if I invite my parents and grandmother, the whole family?
Pretending to be naive, I suggested calling in my family as reinforcements.
After all, when it comes to showing appreciation, why not include the parents?
Might as well make it a grand gesture of filial piety on my part too.
Great idea. Your parents will be thrilled, right? Both of us can do something nice for our parents.
Jeff happily agreed. Though I suspected Amanda had something up her sleeve by joining our honeymoon, as long as I could enjoy Anchorage, nothing else mattered. There will be plenty of opportunities for Jeff and me to spend time together in the future. This time, let's enjoy a family trip. On the day of our honeymoon, we met up at the airport. My sweetie, thank you for inviting Mommy today. What a filial sweetie you are. Amanda beamed.
Sarah, are you sure it's okay for us to come along?
Eddie asked.
Of course. It's all about showing appreciation. Right, Sarah?
Amanda chimed in. I wasn't the one who invited her, but today, I'm playing the naive one.
Amanda, of course. This trip is all about showing our appreciation. Oh, look, my mom Wendy and grandmother Shirley just arrived, I said.
My dad couldn't make it due to work, so my mom Wendy and grandmother Shirley were joining us.
Huh? Why is Sarah's family here? On a honeymoon.
Amanda looked displeased.
I want to show my appreciation too. Let's enjoy this family trip,
I said cheerfully. Crashing someone else's honeymoon but getting upset about my parents showing up? That makes no sense.
Amanda, long time no see. It's kind of odd to be intruding on a honeymoon, huh? Well, looks like we both raised kind children,
my mom said. My mom is even more outspoken than I am and doesn't sweat the small stuff. Amanda looked completely taken aback. Being rather fastidious, Amanda seemed ill at ease around someone as easygoing as Wendy. Well, she invited herself, so she'll just have to deal with it. Upon arriving in Anchorage, we first headed to the hotel.
Why are we staying at a hotel? I can't sleep unless it's a cottage,
Amanda immediately complained.
Grandma has trouble with stairs, and a cottage would be difficult for her to navigate. Besides, a hotel is more convenient since it's closer to the city center,
I explained.
Huh? This is the worst. Why do we have to accommodate your grandmother? So inconvenient,
Amanda retorted. Such a nasty attitude. I was disgusted by her remark, but knew better than to engage.
Maybe you could try sleeping with earplugs? That way, the noise won't bother you,
I suggested.
What? How rude! I've had enough.
Amanda snapped back, clearly offended, and stormed off to her room. Later, we all went out for lunch. First up was a seafood barbecue. Eating fresh salmon and halibut grilled to perfection. I was nearly moved to tears. The seafood in Anchorage is truly unparalleled. It was simply too good. My mom and grandma were both delighted. My grandma even said,
I'm so happy I could ascend to heaven,
despite enjoying such delicious food.
I'm not fond of seafood. Why does it have to be a seafood barbecue?
Amanda grumbled. Coming to Anchorage despite disliking seafood? What was she thinking? I wished she wouldn't spoil our happy moment. In the end, Amanda left most of her barbecue untouched after just one bite. Such a waste. It was disrespectful to the restaurant. Then,
Amanda, you hardly ate anything. Let me have it. Don't worry, I'll avoid the parts you've touched,
my mom said.
What? You're going to eat my leftovers? Please, don't.
Without paying any heed to Amanda, my mom quickly finished everything. Amanda looked utterly disgusted, viewing my mom as if she were some beast. I secretly applauded my mom's unintended act of vengeance. Then, when discussing where to go next,
I want to visit the Anchorage Museum.
Amanda declared.
It involves a lot of walking, which might be difficult for Grandma with her bad legs.
I mentioned.
Then Shirley can just stay at the hotel. It takes too long to walk with someone who has difficulty moving.
Amanda coldly suggested. I was infuriated by her mean-spirited comment.
Stop it, that's rude.
Eddie chastised Amanda. Yet, Amanda persisted.
But we want to see as much as possible on our trip, don't we?
Adding more snide remarks.
Don't worry about me, go ahead without me. I'm satisfied just having had the seafood barbecue.
My grandma said, being considerate.
Then let's split up and meet again for dinner at the hotel, where I've made reservations.
I suggested, unable to tolerate my grandma being spoken to so harshly.
If Sarah's okay with it, then let's do our own thing and be filial in our ways,
said a carefree Jeff.
Sarah, I'm sorry if I caused any trouble.
Shirley expressed her concern, but
it's totally fine. Actually, I'm not that interested in sightseeing. I wanted to go out for ice cream this afternoon,
I shared, to which my grandma seemed relieved. I didn't want to see her make such a face. It hurt me.
I'm all for food too. Coming all the way to Anchorage just to visit a museum? Amanda's the odd one.
Wendy's boldness saved the day in situations like this. We enjoyed our sightseeing and returned to the hotel very satisfied. When we arrived at the restaurant for dinner, Jeff and his party were already there. Jeff and Eddie looked somewhat tired. Amanda complained throughout the meal.
Steak? I would have preferred pizza.
She grumbled continuously. I had had enough.
Amanda, constantly complaining will make even the tastiest food tasteless. You can't enjoy yourself with that expression, or was it your face to begin with?
I let it slip. Oops, my natural side showing.
How dare you? You're a daughter-in-law and you think you could be behaving like this.
Amanda fumed, her face turning red.
Enough is enough. We are guests on your honeymoon.
Eddie interjected.
Humph.
With that parting shot, Amanda stormed off to her room.
People actually say humph in real life.
Wendy couldn't help but add her 2 cents. The next day, when we were discussing today's plans,
we'll be going around with my sweetie again today. Where shall we go, I wonder?
Amanda announced. We were all too happy to agree since we didn't want to accompany Amanda. Soon after splitting up for sightseeing, Jeff came over to us.
Sarah, I was hoping to spend today with you guys, if that's okay?
He said. Is it okay with Amanda? I asked.
Well, Mommy has been in a bad mood, complaining nonstop wherever we go. Yesterday wasn't fun at all. Dad said I should go out with you guys today, so can I join?
Jeff explained. It was our honeymoon, so it wasn't a problem for Jeff to join.
Why don't you two go out by yourselves, since it's your honeymoon?
My grandma kindly suggested, but
we decided to be filial together, so let's all go out,
Jeff said. Jeff spent the day helping Shirley with her mobility and even bought Anchorage crafts for my mom and my dad, Owen, who couldn't make it.
Your family is my family too,
he said, earnestly fulfilling his filial duties. Jeff's obliviousness to Amanda's malice is a flaw, but his honesty and kindness are what I truly love about him. I half expected a call from Amanda, but we were able to enjoy our Anchorage sightseeing peacefully, without any incident. When we returned to the hotel, the receptionist had a message for us from Eddie.
I've had some sudden work come up, so we'll be heading back first. Please enjoy your trip without worrying about us. Dad has to work on a holiday?
That's unusual, Jeff remarked, but it seemed Eddie was just being considerate and had made up an excuse to take Amanda back with him. I felt sorry for causing Eddie any trouble. Thanks to Eddie, we were able to enjoy the rest of our trip to Anchorage. For a while after that, we had no encounters with Amanda and lived peacefully. Months later, for our first wedding anniversary, we decided to go out for a meal.
I'll find a nice place for you.
Jeff was enthusiastic. A few days later, Jeff made a surprising suggestion. How about we invite my parents and Carl to the meal? Mommy said it was a pity Carl couldn't join us on the trip last time. Carl also said he's missed seeing you. What do you think? I wondered what Amanda was planning this time, but indeed, we hadn't seen Carl recently, and I wanted to apologize for any inconvenience we caused Eddie during the trip.
Sure. Can I also invite my parents and my sister Kate?
I asked.
Great idea. I haven't seen Owen and Kate for a while either. Let's book a private room then. It's going to be fun.
Jeff, ever the optimist, said. If only Amanda wasn't an issue, I'd have an entirely kind-hearted husband who values family. On the day of the meal, my family arrived at the restaurant first.
Thank you for joining us for our wedding anniversary meal,
said Jeff.
What? It's your anniversary meal? I thought it was just a regular dinner. Are you sure it's okay for us to crash?
Kate worried.
It's fine. Jeff's parents and Carl are joining us too,
I explained, which puzzled Kate. Shortly after, Amanda and her party arrived. As soon as she entered the room,
What? Why is Sarah's family here too?
Amanda hysterically exclaimed.
It's a special occasion since Owen and Kate couldn't join the trip. It's only fair,
Jeff responded.
That's not the point. Why do you always have to ruin my plans? I was hoping to drive a wedge between you two during the honeymoon and get you divorced. After that failed because of interference, I thought I'd ruin your anniversary today,
Amanda shockingly revealed. Though I suspected she was up to something, I never imagined it was to this extent. Such malice was beyond belief. Why? You're a kind person, Mommy. Why would you say such things? Jeff was genuinely shocked. Believing Amanda was genuinely kind. Bro, what are you talking about? That's who Mom is, right? Like the epitome of everything bad about women. Mom likes playing the good mother in front of you because she loves her sweet, naive son. But seriously, you should have noticed, Jeff. Even for someone who's a natural airhead as you, there's a limit. Carl chimed in. While Jeff was naturally naive, Carl appeared to be more grounded.
What? Carl, how can you say such a thing?
Amanda shrieked, but
enough is enough. Jeff and Sarah aren't going to divorce. The ones divorcing are us,
said Eddie.
What? Us?
Amanda faltered.
I've had enough of your antics. I intended to see our marriage through to the end, but if you're going to trouble Sarah as well, that's the last straw. Let's get divorced,
Eddie declared.
Why me? It's Sarah's fault. She's stealing my sweetie.
Amanda continued her tirade. Everyone, I apologize for the disturbance today. We'll be taking our leave now, Eddie said, forcibly taking a noisy Amanda home. Everyone was left dumbfounded by the turn of events. I had been ready to confront Amanda if she caused any trouble, but I never expected this outcome. Why? Jeff seemed deeply shocked.
Dad's right to want a divorce. And today was your wedding anniversary? You shouldn't have invited Mom of all people on such a day.
What were you thinking, bro? Carl remarked. Since we had already made reservations, we decided to proceed with our meal. During the meal, Carl lectured Jeff, discussing Amanda's malice that Jeff had been oblivious to, and Jeff seemed very remorseful. Sarah, I'm sorry for not noticing before. He apologized. It felt like a victory over Amanda without even having to fight.
Carl, saying she's like everything bad about women condensed into one person was spot on. I had a hard time holding back my laughter.
My mom chimed in.
You're pretty funny yourself, too.
Carl and Wendy hit it off. Despite everything, it seemed our families grew closer as a result. While it was an unexpected turn of events for our families, it was heartwarming to see both families getting along so well. Amanda and Eddie eventually divorced. Excluding Amanda, both families became very close, often dining and traveling together. Jeff and I, who value family, were happy about the improved family relations.